time for the Rider Dynasty podcast. Let's go! Welcome to the Rider Dynasty podcast with Ryan Bickerstaff, JJ Wenner, and your host, Michael Kloss.
Well, guys, we are at the 27th episode of the Rider Dynasty podcast. No time for pomp and circumstance today because we have got just crazy implications from week 2 and how we're going to move on to week 3. I'm your host, Michael Kloss. I'm joined by my co-host, that's JJ Wenner, and Ryan Bickerstaff. How you guys doing tonight?
I'm not doing too bad. I know there's no time for pomp and circumstance, but could we just get a little bit of circumstance?
Or maybe a little bit of pomp?
Oh my God, that felt... What? Hello? Hello? Is this thing on?
I said a little bit of pomp. You don't think that's funny?
Was that a reference to something? Because that totally went over my head.
No, it's okay.
Oh my God, this is turning out horribly.
This is exactly how we figured this podcast was going to start, and we're really excited to be here. Lots to cover. Certified athletic trainer Nick Mirabito is with us to recap week 2 of the NFL season. What's going on, Nick?
Hey everybody, glad to be back again tonight. It's been a pretty busy week for me with school and work, but I made sure to do my homework on about the 85 players that got injured this week.
Yeah, it was too many. There's going to be a lot of people scraping at the waiver wire, doing a lot of trades. For us, we're going to hit the biggest news stories and see how it impacts your fantasy team. We'll also get into our segment that we like to call Over-Under, and we will also talk about, again, the players that we think are capable the rest of the year.
Yeah, and then Ryan and Michael are going to give you their starts and sits picks for week 3. But first, it's time for our favorite segment with our favorite guest.
Nicked Up! With athletic trainer Nick Mirabito.
So a long laundry list of guys that got hurt this weekend, like Nick said. We will elaborate on Ben Roethlisberger in a bit. We want to discuss some of the guys that Nick are still going to be playing at some point in the year. So, again, we said long laundry list. We're talking about Drew Brees. The Eagles got hit hard with Alshon Jeffrey, Deshaun Jackson, and Dallas Goedert. Damian Williams and LaShawn McCoy from the Chiefs are both a little nicked up. James Conner hurt. Michael Gallup, Tyrell Williams, Devin Singletary, and then just latest today, Cam Newton. Just all having issues. Nick, I want to go through and talk about your concern level for each one of these players that got nicked up this week and their outlooks of what you think for the rest of the year. So I think the way that we're going to play this is, we like to make stuff up. So we're going to work on a 1 through 3 scale, 1 meaning slightly concerned, 2 moderately concerned, and 3 extremely concerned. Hopefully you got that. Nick, I would love for you to start with the guys who you would consider a 3, meaning extremely concerned. So I think that, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think it's a good place to start with Drew Brees.
Yeah, so actually, I'm going to maybe surprise you a little bit here. I'm going to give Drew Brees a 2, so moderately concerned. So let me explain why here in a second. So Brees is going to have surgery Wednesday to repair the ulnar collateral ligament in his thumb. Without getting into crazy anatomy teaching, this is a ligament that is very important for quarterbacks because it allows them to grip the ball. You may have seen the video where he tried to pick up a ball and he immediately dropped it. He couldn't do it because he was in so much pain. Now, the reason why I'm only giving him a 2 and not a 3 is because this is actually a pretty predictable rehab here. It's not a soft tissue or nagging type of injury. He is going to be out for the 6 weeks that you've seen reported. It's pretty standard. And while now I know that's not great, right? You don't want him missing 6 weeks. He should be completely fine when he comes back. It's not like a nagging soft tissue type of injury, and I'd rather know exactly how long it's going to take for a player to come back than have one one of those nagging injuries. So that is why I'm giving Drew Brees a 2.
Okay, and just really quickly, Ryan, how do you think this affects the Saints playmakers? Because I'm not feeling so good over here.
Well, luckily the Saints have the league's best backup in Teddy Bridgewater, so while losing Drew
Can't believe you
Brees
said that.
hurts, it's only for 6 weeks, then it's back to business. But hey, remember, Teddy Bridgewater is a former Pro Bowler, and he led the Minnesota Vikings to the playoffs in 2015. So this is a quarterback. He's been in the league for a long time. He has a lot of starter experience. There's definitely going to be a downtick in offensive production in the Big Easy, but not all is lost. Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara are still going to be weekly fantasy starts, and Jared Cook even has some fantasy upside as well.
All right, Nick, tell us about your dear Eagles. 3 players went down this week, kind of messing up a lot of fantasy teams with Alshon and Deshaun both bailing out after being healthy to start the game. What's going on with the Eagles?
Yeah, so like you said, right, Alshon Jeffrey, Deshaun Jackson, and Dallas Goedert, all with soft tissue injuries, and I'm going to lump them all together here and give them all 3s. I'm honestly extremely concerned about all of them. The reason why is for a couple of reasons here. So they play 2 games in 10 days. So they play Sunday, and then they play again Thursday night. That quick turnaround makes things extremely difficult to come back in time. So it would not surprise me at all if, quite frankly, all of them missed the next 2 games. Alshon and Dallas Goedert both have calf strains. Alshon Jeffrey is, like I said, the first podcast that came on with you guys when we were talking about injury prone, and while I don't like that term, I talked about having a little worry with people that have recurring soft tissue injuries, and he has had those issues his entire career. Dallas Goedert has had this calf injury since week 1 of the preseason. He rested for the majority of preseason. They tried to, kind of manage his workload, and here it is cropping back up again in week 2. So that is concerning. And Deshaun is 32 years old, and they're not going to rush him back. So he has an abdominal strain. He's too important, and they have too big aspirations to try to rush him back too early. And when I think of a wide receiver, I think about the need to be explosive, to use your core, the ability to twist, to make tough catches. So, you wonder in that 32-year-old body how that can hold up, considering he's also had his share of soft tissue injuries that span his entire career. So, unlike Drew Brees, where we know the time that he's definitely going to miss, these are guys that maybe they come back in a couple weeks, but then they're out again and you don't expect it. So that is why I'm very concerned about this trio here.
Now that kind of gets me thinking, just what are and how does this affect just kind of the other Eagles players on offense? I mean, what would you say, JJ?
Watching that game against Atlanta, I have no idea. You would think going against a team that gave up 170 some yards against the Vikings the first week that maybe the Eagles might try to run the ball a little bit. They really didn't seem to get their run game going. I would say Nelson Aguilar is a definite pickup. And outside of that, I really don't know. I mean, I love JJAW, but he didn't seem to play that well in...
No, he's not.
Yeah, while Alshon was out.
Well, let's keep moving. Ryan, where are we at now on this long list of injuries?
Yeah, Nick, tell us about the 2 Chiefs running backs, Damian Williams and LaShawn McCoy.
Yeah, so I'm going to give both of these guys a 1 here on this 1 to 3 scale. So just slightly concerned. Andy Reid said after the game that he expects both of these guys to actually practice this week. Williams left the game with a contusion, knee contusion, which really means that it's all about pain management. Shady underwent an MRI on Monday for his ankle, and it came back negative with, quote, no major damage found. NFL Network's Tom Pelissero, I think that's how you pronounce his name. Sorry, Tom, if you're listening.
No, we're not, Tom. We're not sorry at all.
He said that he could even play this week. So for both of these guys, I don't have much long-term concern. I guess for Shady, the inherent age concern is always, going to be there a little bit. But look, we'll have to watch the injury reports this week, see and make sure, like I say, ad nauseum, that there is some sort of progression throughout the week here.
One of the guys that is a start in everyone's lineup is James Conner. Another guy that's working his way into everyone's lineup, most likely throughout the rest of the season, is Devin Singletary. Talk about those two.
Yeah, so I'm going to give Connor a 1, and I'm going to give Singletary a 2 here. It seems like Connor's knee injury is again more of a contusion. He was quoted saying that there are no tears or anything. There's been a bunch of reports saying that the Steelers seem very positive on his outlook. Now for Singletary, I know people are very, very excited about him. He came out of the weekend with a hamstring strain. And, I don't want to make everybody panic. We're still waiting for details on the severity. But here's my very simple formula for rookies with hamstring strains. Ready? Crazy math here. Okay. Rookie plus hamstring strain equals concern for re-injury. Okay. So especially early in the year. I talked about this before, right? There's this drastic change in workout schedule from when they go from college to the pros. And that type of thing can have an effect on soft tissue injuries. And hamstring strains can be extremely tricky. Once that tissue is altered, it is impossible to get it back to its original state. It has to adapt, and that takes time. So that's why I'm giving him a 2. Right now, like I said, we're still waiting for updates. Keep looking at that practice schedule. But because he is young and has a hamstring strain, I am inherently moderately concerned.
No, that's good to know. I guess, would you say, Ryan, maybe any kind of value in Frank Gore or TJ Yeldon?
Maybe Gore this week, just because the Bengals did just get destroyed for over 250 yards on the ground last weekend by the 49ers.
Well, he is a starter. I want to keep moving because, like I said, tons of injuries. 2 wide receivers that went down this week was Michael Gallup and Tyrell Williams spent some time in the locker room. What's going on there?
So I'm going to give Tyrell Williams a 1 here, and then Michael Gallup a 2. And I'll start with Tyrell Williams here. So he sustained a hip pointer, not a hamstring pointer, as JJ so affectionately called that injury a few weeks ago.
Thank God, because we all know how dangerous a hamstring pointer is.
Hamstring pointers,
luckily,
they are very dangerous. Yes.
Season ending.
They could be. I'll tell you what. If I ever see a hamstring pointer, I'll let you know, and it's probably season ending for sure. But anyway, so a hip pointer, it's basically like a really bad contusion, kind of on the crest of your hip bone. For Williams, because it's a contusion, like I said, it's all about managing the pain. It completely depends on severity. Sometimes you can have very severe ones that honestly kind of prevent you from walking, and sometimes you just have ones that kind of keep you out a little bit. It wouldn't surprise me if he missed a week. But as I say with all of these guys, right, make sure you're taking a look at the practice schedule and seeing some progression. His severity, though, I would say is, or at least my concern, is much less than Michael Gallup. So for Gallup, he underwent a procedure on his meniscus on Tuesday and is expected to miss 2 to 4 weeks. Now, I know we just heard about a meniscus surgery with Darius Geis, and it is similar, but it's also a little bit different. So with the meniscus, it's all about really where the surgery is done and what technique is used. So I believe with Gallup, he underwent a meniscectomy, so like a little trimming of the meniscus. They kind of shaved part of it off there, and then they let it heal. The reason why his time frame, I believe, is reported to be less than Geis is most likely because of where the procedure was done. So there are different portions of the meniscus that have different blood supply, right? So if you have more blood supply, healing occurs quicker. So what I'm thinking, because of the reporting in the weeks that he should be out here, it seems like Gallup's procedure was more done in the area with greater blood supply, whereas Geis's was more in the area with less blood supply. So I would say, believe the reporting, expect a 2 to 4 week absence for Gallup, and then hopefully, it shouldn't be anything that lingers too much after he comes back with a little rest and rehab.
JJ, I know that Amari Cooper is written all over your notebooks with hearts, and he's right there with Sammy Watkins as your favorite wide receiver. So are you seeing a boost with Mr. Cooper?
Keep Sammy's name out your mouth, Michael.
I'll say.
You know that's my boo.
I'll say whatever I want.
He's my ride or die. No, I hate Amari Cooper. No, and I don't care if every other receiver on that team dies tragically.
Dies?
I am not giving a boost to Amari Cooper. I'm actually thinking the biggest beneficiaries are going to be Randall Cobb or Devin Smith. Cobb is looking fresh, which is nice, right? Like, we all liked Cobb when he was healthy on the Packers. Like, he was an exciting player for everybody to watch. And of course, Devin Smith is healthy, something that, as a Jets fan, I was looking for 3 years ago when he came out of Ohio State. Is that right? Ohio State, Devin Smith?
Sure.
Man, I have no clue. I'd have to look that up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right. But a quick question for Nick.
Quick answer for you.
You're talking about contusions versus strains.
Yeah.
And that one is a pain threshold and one changes the muscle makeup, basically.
Yeah.
What is the difference between a contusion and a strain?
So let me be clear. When I'm talking about here for Tyrell Williams with a contusion, it's a bony contusion. So when you have a hip pointer, right, and I'm talking a contusion of the hip bone, that is different than like a muscle strain. Whereas when you strain a muscle, you are damaging the tissue to the muscle, right? So compared to, now let's say there was a contusion like you've heard of, maybe like a quad contusion or something before,
yes.
Right? So that's like a really bad deep bruise of the quad. That, yes, is more concerning than, I would say, a bony contusion. So it's the same idea. Usually with a strain, there's a stretch involved and maybe a little more tearing. So a contusion is a little less than a strain, but that's why here in this specific case, right, Tyrell Williams is more bony, Michael Gallup more tissue related. That's why I'm a little more concerned about Gallup.
Well, JJ, you were
right.
you were right. Devin Smith went to the Ohio State University, second-round pick. So beautiful call on that one. I want to get one more from you, Nick, though, before you're gone.
Let's hear it.
A guy you loved coming into the season, Cam Newton. What's going on?
He did love him.
I did. I'll tell you what. I still love him. Okay, but objectively, right? Like this kills me to say this, but I'm gonna give Cam a 3 here. I'm very concerned. It's really frustrating because all the reporting from the preseason said that the foot was supposed to be fine. The mechanism of the initial injury looked to be fine. It didn't look bad. The boot seemed to be precautionary. Ron Rivera and the rest of the team was spouting out that he could have played that week if it was a regular game. So it is definitely frustrating that he's re-injured that foot. The shoulder has held up, which is good. But the problem is Cam hasn't been running. And presumably that's because of the foot. And so that's preventing him from what makes him special, right? So, if you think about that fourth down near the goal line, like 2 years ago, the Panthers would have run with Cam and made you try to tackle him at the goal line, right? Like he was probably the best goal line option in the NFL. Just have the passing option and be able to run over somebody, right? So, look, right now that's not the case. And until we see something change, you have to be concerned. Right now his status is, quote, up in the air. So look, we'll see what the practice schedule looks like this week. But to already have the words "up in the air" coming out on a Monday, that's not great. So we'll keep an eye out for any specific updates. But yes, as of right now, I love Cam. However, I am definitely concerned at this point.
And then, again, just from a fantasy perspective, I kind of want to shift this over to Ryan. You've been so vocal about DJ Moore. How really concerned are you for Cam, and how do you really see it impacting a DJ Moore, a Curtis Samuel, a CMC?
As a Cam manager, I'm a little worried. Luckily, I have Dak Prescott in the same league as Cam Newton, so it's not that big of a deal for me personally. But I can't speak for all fantasy footballers here, and Cam has looked off so far in the first 2 games. And the stats don't even tell the whole story. He's not finding the end zone through the air or on the ground. His accuracy's way off. He looks erratic.
Yeah, you're
But
right.
one thing that he has been doing right is he's getting the ball to DJ Moore. Moore saw 14 targets against Tampa and 10 against the LA Rams. So as long as Cam's playing, I think the volume's going to be there for DJ Moore. So I'm not terribly concerned for his fantasy outlook right now. As far as McCaffrey, I think last week against Tampa was more of a fluke. The Bucs' run defense actually looks pretty stout this year, having held both the 49ers and the Panthers to under 100 rushing yards. But if Cam has to miss any time at all, Moore's outlook suddenly becomes quite dim, and defenses will be unable to expend extra resources to stop McCaffrey. So while it's really hard to say McCaffrey would come out of your lineup in that case because he is such a workhorse for that team, I think DJ Moore would have to come out of lineups, at least until we know what his usage would look like with a backup.
Yeah, good point. And Nick, again, thank you so much for just a highly insightful segment of Nicked Up this week. We hope you come back next week, and we really don't have that much to talk about. Hopefully the Reaper doesn't hit everyone as hard in week 3. So thanks for joining us, man.
No, of course. Hopefully, when I come back next week, it's all good news. I just tell you, everybody's returned. It's sunshine and rainbows, and we can have a nice, happy, injury-free week.
All right, thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. And that
All right,
was...
Take it easy.
Nicked Up with athletic trainer Nick Mirabito.
All right, before we get to the news, just remember that you can get all the latest content and updates at our website, riderdynasty.com. You can also hit us up on Twitter. We're at riderdynasty. I know that you'll probably be listening to this after waivers have processed, but I just threw my waivers up there that you can kind of see, pick and choose who doesn't get picked up. So check that out. But now, let's get into the news desk. Okay, guys, another big story was Ben Roethlisberger out for the year, going to have surgery on his right elbow. Ryan, I'll kick it to you. What do you think the outlook is for the Steelers this year?
It's not great, Michael. The Steelers were barely a playoff caliber team before the Roethlisberger injury, and now they're competing for a top 10 draft pick, which is kind of great for them because now they'll be able to snag their QB of the future. That's right. They can't because they just went ahead and traded their 2020 first-round pick away for Minka Fitzpatrick, who, while he's a very good player, he's a defensive back that they didn't really need, and he's not going to help them get to the playoffs this year. It's a very, in my opinion, short-sighted and stupid trade by an organization that has really kind of fallen from glory over the past decade. I also don't think Mason Rudolph is very good, and opposing teams certainly aren't worried about him either. To be honest, I'd rather have Gardner Minshew behind center.
No kidding.
Yes. The passing game hadn't even gotten off the ground in Pittsburgh with Ben at the helm, and now I'm skeptical that it will ever be a factor in 2019. If I'm a Juju Smith-Schuster manager, I'm taking a serious look at trading him away in redraft leagues. Except I'm also wondering, what kind of value could you possibly get for him right now, given the circumstances? He's the number 33 receiver in fantasy right now, and he just lost his quarterback for the year. And the run game hasn't looked great either now. And now that James Conner's banged up, it's really not looking great. So even if he's good to go, defenses will still be keying in on the run to shut that down. And I don't know. To me, it looks like Pittsburgh's done. So enjoy your 2020 top 10 pick. Of course, it'll be in the second round because you gave up your first rounder for a defensive back that you didn't need. Congratulations.
JJ, you agree with that at all?
Yeah, that was a lot. Yeah, I can't necessarily argue with that.
You can.
I mean, yeah, I definitely could, but no, I'm not excited about the Steelers. I generally don't cheer for players to get injured, but I can honestly say I didn't really care that Ben was. but it does hurt people who do have Juju Smith on their rosters. So I am not worried at all about Mason Rudolph coming in there and being good. I just don't get what they're doing. I don't mind them trading a first for Minka. They have a lot of holes in their secondary, and I think he's a very good player. But yeah, I think they're sort of rudderless right now. I think you sort of saw that with what happened with AB and Le'Veon, and how they handled that. But yeah, I stick a fork in them. I agree, Ryan.
At least Rudolph will have the green light to chuck it around and maybe score some fantasy points for some managers. I will move on to the next bit of news. This is kind of odd. Kind of seeing on the sidelines, Jalen Ramsey just, John at coach, and now it comes out that he's requested a trade. It's supposedly no one's really interested in acquiring him right now. Ryan, where would he even go?
I can't say that they would be interested in Jalen Ramsey, but I can think of one team that would be a great fit for him, and that's Bob Quinn, if you're out there listening. That is the Detroit Lions. The defense already looks pretty good this year, but just imagine Jalen Ramsey on one side, Darius Slay on the other, got Tracy Walker and Quandre Diggs holding down the safety spots. Now, that would make Detroit's defense scary. Opposing teams wouldn't be able to pass on him. And, and Jalen Ramsey, he wants to go somewhere to win. And Detroit should be 2-0 right now if it wasn't for that late game timeout gaffe against Arizona week 1, which wasn't Bob Quinn's fault. But again, if you're listening, the least you could do for us long-suffering fans out here is bring in an all-pro caliber player like that to really fill out the rest of our defense and turn this team into a legitimate playoff contender.
All right. Michael, what do you think about that?
Again, I'm not trading for Jalen Ramsey. I think he's a good player, but what am I going to give up for him? I think that's more of what I'm thinking. Everybody came into the year all set at as many positions as they possibly could, unless you're the Oakland Raiders, who anticipated you were getting a number 1 wide receiver, and we all know how that worked out. That's neither here nor there, but whenever I watch a player, really, again, I'm not a GM, but whenever I watch a player, even with talent, having issues on the side, my first instinct is, unless you are ungodly on the field, it would be hard for me to be like, yep, I see that. I see all that anger on the sideline, or I see you having problems. Let's bring that over to my house. So I wouldn't be buying, and I'm not surprised anybody is right now.
Yeah, I definitely would bring him in. I agree with Ryan. I think right now that Jacksonville's asking for 2 firsts, which is why nobody's bringing him in.
Yeah,
There's been a ton of interest in Jalen Ramsey. I think the Chiefs have been the most interested in bringing him in. But 2 first picks, that's hefty.
You're right. That would actually make sense if it were the Chiefs, just because you're guessing that they're going to get to another AFC title game and their defense can't stop anybody, So that would actually be a good move.
Well, I know Jamal Adams is pretty pissed over on the Jets after being benched last night by Greg with 2G Williams. My son and I shared some texts today about what we think about that coaching staff and how they're treating the players and turning their best defensive player against the franchise. So, I tend to side with the players in most circumstances, and I will continue to in these cases. But anyway, so far this season, Adam Vinatieri has missed 2 field goals and 3 extra points. To put that in perspective, Michael, those 5 total missed kicks are greater than or equal to his total in 12 different seasons. He hinted at retirement before walking back those statements. Now the Colts brought in several free agent kickers just in case his kicking woes continue. I'd hate to see him go. I mean, I think he's the last player still playing from the 90s. Michael, is Adam Vinatieri a first ballot Hall of Fame player?
I guess let me throw a question back to you. Are there any kickers in the Hall of Fame? I honestly don't know.
Yeah, isn't like Ray Guy in there? Or he was a punter. I'm sure there's some kickers.
Morton
Right.
Anderson, I think.
Yeah.
I think that sounds familiar. I think yes, he is. And first ballot, was it like 23 seasons, something crazy like that? I don't like Tom Brady. I mean, I like him as a player. I want to hate on him. I think a lot of people do. But winning, that first Super Bowl for Tom Brady, just him being out there, him being an Iron Man, his field goal percentages, I think is as high as like 96% when he was with, Indy in 2014. I think he's just had a great career, and I think he belongs there. I know Bill Belichick and all the teams that he's played with, has said that he thinks he's the best kicker he's ever seen. So yeah, I'd probably go ahead, even if he has, struggles here at the end of the season. I think all players drop off. Not every player gets to ride off into the sunset. So I'm going to go with yes. I think that he would be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. If there's any kicker who's going to go in on the first ballot, it would definitely be Vinatieri. Or Mike Vanderjagt.
Sebastian
What did Peyton Manning call him? Greg the Leg. All right, well, that was it for news, guys. And so let's kick off our over and under segment. Now, Ryan handled this one the last time, so I decided that I'm going to do it this time. I'm going to give a number for the upcoming season for either a player or a team. And Ryan and Michael will have to predict if that player or team will finish over or under the number.
Okay.
Now, I provided the two of you with a list of the players or teams I will be discussing. But just for the record, I did not tell you the stats I would be giving. Is that correct?
Right. We have no
Yes.
idea.
All right. So, let's start with everybody's favorite video game quarterback, Pat Mahomes.
Oh, I thought
Now,
you were going to
guess-
say Gardner Minshew. Okay, go ahead. I'm ready. Pat Mahomes.
Or Lamar Jackson. I mean, there's so many good quarterbacks right now. But so Pat Mahomes was a regression candidate this year after passing for 50 touchdowns in 2018. He is currently on pace for 56 touchdowns. Ryan, Pat Mahomes, over under 50 TDs this season.
I'm going to take the over on that. I don't think he's going to hit 56, but I think he can do better than what he did last year. You know what? Yeah, screw it. Let's go with 56. He's going to break Peyton Manning's single season record.
All right, so you're going way over, but you're taking the over. Michael?
Patrick Mahomes is an MVP, is the MVP, but I'm going to go just a shade under. We'll say
Any reasoning behind that?
I'll say 47, 48, and I'm going to say, like, again, teams should learn to key on him. I would readily be fine if you lined up as a defense and said, listen, this dude's not going to beat us. Like, that's got to happen at some point, right? Like, he's not going to pass for 4 or 5 touchdowns a game. That is video game scores. I mean, I would love to see it happen. I own Patrick Mahomes in 2 leagues, but let's just go right on the cusp of under.
Very good. All right, next up we have Dante Pettis. Dante Pettis was touted as a rising wide receiver prospect after his 2018 season. After 2 weeks, he has a blistering 1 target, 1 reception, and 7 yards. Ryan, over or under 35 receptions total for Dante Pettis this season?
I gotta take the over on that. I mean, I at least think he's going to outperform what he did as a rookie. It seems logical. But there are a lot of weapons on that San Francisco 49ers team. But I don't see him staying in this like funk he's in for the entire season. Like last year, he did have some down games where he was just a decoy and he missed some others with injuries, and he still finished with a respectable like yardage count on the year. So I don't think it's over for him yet.
Michael?
I mean, again, to get 35, it seems like that would be so easy, but he's not even getting the looks right now, you know? I want to believe this is an over just because it's a long season, but I definitely would not be surprised if Debo took over, you know, once you get Tevin Coleman back, and if they decide to keep Breida and Mostert, you know, in that backfield. And again, that's what Shanahan does, is he loves his running backs, and I think that's why there was a lot of excitement about Tevin Coleman. JJ, I know that you projected Tevin Coleman to have a very solid year. I did. I'm going to go with. I have to go with the over. I think that if you would have said 50, I would have gone under, but I'm going to go over 35.
All right, so the Miami Dolphins have scored 10 points in 2 games, averaging 5 points per game. Now, that's fancy math, but trust me, it's averaging 5 points per game. Now, the lowest scoring team of the past decade were the 2009 St. Louis Rams, who scored 175 points in a season, which is just under 11 points per game. Now, over or under, Miami Dolphins score 175 points this season. Michael.
I mean, that's a fantastic question. I look at, I'm pulling it up here right now. I'm looking at the Dolphins' schedule at some point. Again, they're going to play, Buffalo's a good team. You know, they're going to play them twice. They're going to run into Pittsburgh, who's kind of a little bit of a dumpster fire, as we said. You know, they should do, I guess, it should be an interesting game against Washington, but gosh, you're playing the Giants, you're playing the Jets twice. Yeah, I mean, they better get there. They better figure it out, but I would be more inclined to have given you like how many games are they going to win, because it doesn't look like much. But if you can't,
not the game we're playing.
Yeah, if you can't score 100, and how many points was it?
175.
175. You know what? Just to show how bad their outlook is, I'm going to go with under.
Ooh.
Ryan?
All right, so we're basically saying they're going to. We're looking at the Dolphins averaging just a hair below 11 points per game.
That's correct.
I'm gonna be contrarian here and take the over. I can't imagine, you know, like Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's known to go off for, you know, like one of his signature 300-yard, 4-touchdown games.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to do that a couple times at least, and I can't imagine that they're just such a bad football team that they can't manage more points than that per game.
Too bad Fitzpatrick's getting benched after week 4.
Also, just
Probably.
as a point, he's not throwing to Deshaun Jackson, Chris Godwin, and Mike Evans.
That's very true. Wait, wasn't
interesting.
Wasn't he on one of those Rams teams back in the day, like around that era?
I know he was on the Rams at some point, but
Yeah.
I believe he was technically on every team at one point. Yes, I believe this weekend he threw a pick 6 for his 6th team this weekend.
Congratulations.
Wow.
Yay!
Is that a record?
I think so. All right.
It has to be some kind of record.
So my favorite running back, James Conner, has started slowly after missing several games to end last season. Now, I believe that Connor does not regain his form, especially with the demise of Ben Roethlisberger. Over or under James Conner scoring 150 fantasy points this season?
Ooh.
PPR.
Oh.
Ryan, you gonna take this one first?
Yeah. Wow. So 2 games down. Do you have his current points total off the top of your head?
I don't.
Half
I can look it up quick.
PPR, he's looking at 20 and a half points.
Okay, so he's already on pace for more than that. But then there's the Ben factor. I gotta take the over on this. Pittsburgh still has a good offensive line, and whether they're not going to trust Mason Rudolph to throw at the goal line. They're going to try to pound it in with Connor. I think there's going to be opportunities for touchdowns there. I think the offense is going to run through him literally.
All right.
Yeah.
Michael, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if you said PPR, if he catches 50 balls, he's already a third of the way there. So I'll definitely go over there.
All right. So Ryan's favorite tight end, Mark Andrews, has scored 50 points in 2 games with 16 catches for 220 yards and 2 TDs. This is an unsustainable pace, or is it? Over under, Mark Andrews averages 18.5 points per game this season and tops Kelsey's 2018 season of 296 points. Ryan.
That is such a...
He's like, I want it so bad.
I really do. I would love to see that happen. I mean, Travis Kelce is arguably the best tight end of this generation, aside from Gronk, of course. But yeah, I mean, he's been around for a long time. I guess it's time for a new one to step up. I'm going to take the over on this. Why not? Mark Andrews, it looks like Baltimore's offense is clicking on all cylinders. He's clearly the top receiver on that team right now. I'll take the over on this one. Let's go for it.
Michael?
Generally, when you give me the chance to bet for a record or for against a record, I'm gonna say you have to show me first. I'm just not gonna buy into it right away after 2 games. Definitely under. He might, start sniffing at that number, but let's be real. Baltimore played 2 games. What was it? It's against Miami and Arizona. Come on. Those are 2 fantastic matchups for them. That whole offense, while they are a good team, is going to come a little bit back down to earth, as will Andrews.
All right, bonus one I'm throwing in here to surprise you two. You both have shown unreasonable man love for Baker Mayfield. In fact, one of you claimed and the other one supported prediction of 40 touchdown passes this year.
Was that the drunk podcast? Can I
think that was the drunk
Nope.
podcast.
I believe it was a stone cold sober podcast.
Can we just pretend it was the drunk podcast?
Over under, Michael. Baker Mayfield, 40 touchdowns.
After watching the first 2 games of the season, I am not loving that offense like I said I would. I had to give props to JJ which he kind of kept us grounded and said that Odell's going to get his, but I think all 3 of us at some point talked about how Jarvis Landry was going to fall, and David Njoku is a threat but not a consistent weapon. The way that it looks right now is he's probably going to get about 32 to 35 at most under for me.
Ryan?
Okay, so I've already predicted that Pat Mahomes is going to break Peyton Manning's single-season touchdown record, and Mark Andrews is going to have the greatest fantasy season for a tight end ever. So I'm going to just take the under on this one.
I thought you were setting that up, man. Oh,
I'm gonna make one rational call here. So yeah, I would have loved to have seen it happen, but yeah, I gotta take the under. It's not looking as great as advertised through 2 games.
All right, last question, bonus question for everybody. Who scores more this season? James Conner or the Miami Dolphins?
James Conner, easily.
Now, of course, I'm saying the Miami Dolphins real points.
Yes.
James Conner PPR points.
I'm sticking with James Conner.
Gotta go James Conner.
Yeah, I'm hopefully, the coaching staff sits there and goes, let's not get fancy here. Let's work in Juju, let's work in Vance McDonald, and let's work in James Conner. And you know what? Let's just go power against power and run the ball. So James Conner, confidently.
All right, and Ryan, you agree?
Yeah, I gotta agree. James Conner.
All right. Well, thank you guys for doing Over Under. I really enjoyed that segment. I like putting together
fun.
those stats. But now let's get to the most important part of the day. Not really, if you're coming from my point of view, because I hate this segment. We are going to do our start and sits. Now, last week, we did reasonably well. Actually, not really. We hit on all of our QB starts and sits, but we whiffed on a bunch of others. In total, we were 11 out of 23, or 48% on the week.
Tough sledding a little bit. That's okay.
It's okay. Now, I'm officially announcing my retirement from providing start and sit recommendations in this format. As Ryan and Michael will tell you guys, I'm a little bit of a stickler to rules and guidelines, and this was just a little bit too crazy for my brain to handle. It was a little too daunting for me because I ended up making a bold prediction like starting Jack Doyle. And for that decision alone, I deserve to be relegated to hosting this segment. So I'm going to leave the start sits to the professionals and Michael and Ryan. So QB starts. Ryan, who do you got?
I got Matt Stafford this week against Philadelphia. Philly's secondary is a little suspect. They have so far made Case Keenum look like an all-pro, and they just allowed a 320-yard, 3-touchdown performance from Matt Ryan, who was shut down badly week 1. So after playing injured most of last year, Stafford appears to be back to his old self again, and he's set up nicely to have a big performance in week 3.
Oh, Ryan, you know how much I love Matt Stafford.
I do.
You know how much I love that man. Absolutely, I love that. Michael, what do you have for us?
I'm going to try to keep it simple here, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm going to go with Jameis Winston. I think Tampa Bay, after win at Carolina, gets the wheels rolling. You've got the O.J. Howard screaming and Bruce Arians say, he's going to get the ball more. I think Jameis is going to feed his receivers against the Giants in the last 2 weeks. Opposing quarterbacks have roughed up the Giants, and I think that Jameis is going to keep that trend going.
Wrong. All right, so for our QB sets, you just recommended starting Jameis Winston.
I did. What do you want me to say? I recommend Patrick Mahomes. I did not say that, but you should.
Yeah, don't do that because then he'll tank too. All right, QB sets. Ryan.
I'm sitting Kyler Murray this week. The Carolina Panthers might be 0-2, but they have not been a friendly matchup for quarterbacks. They have so far held former number 1 overall draft picks Jared Goff and Jameis Winston to 10.4 and 13.2 fantasy points respectively. The rookie has flashed moments of brilliance, but he has also shown some growing pains, and this will arguably be the best defense Murray has faced so far.
All right, Michael?
I'm going to say bench Derek Carr this weekend. Tyrell Williams, like we said, is a bit nicked up. That's the only offense other than Darren Waller on that team. They might just run the ball. Plus, Minnesota, that defense is making quarterbacks look silly. So it's not probably like you were going to start, Derek Carr has not eclipsed the 15-point total in either game in half PPR formats. You're sitting Derek Carr again.
Yeah, I can't argue with either of those. Although I do like Kyler Murray, and just watching him run around like a chicken behind that porous offensive line just trying to throw a ball. So, running back starts. Michael, who are you starting?
Okay, so I'm starting David Montgomery, okay?
Ooh, love David Montgomery.
Washington's given up 455 yards per game, the average, which is third worst in the NFL. I could see Tariq Cohen maybe having a good game, but he's been mainly used out of the slot this entire time. Mm-hmm. If you watched that Denver game or saw anything, they gave Montgomery so many chances to score. It was like run the ball at the goal line, run the ball, didn't get in, penalty, run the ball again, then run the ball again, and then actually get in. So I think now is the time against Washington. They're going to let him. They're going to let him free for real.
All right, Ryan, who do you have?
JJ, I had something really nice written out about how the coaches in Buffalo must have been smoking paint chips because they haven't been feeding Devin Singletary the ball, and how Motor Singletary has a 12.7 yards per carry average so far, that he's the number 19 running back in fantasy. And then I realized that I was the one smoking paint chips, and that he's dealing with a hammy issue right now. So I'm going to go with Devonta Freeman here. Indy's defense has been susceptible to running backs through the first two games, allowing 39.4 points to Austin Eckler and 17.3 to Derrick Henry. Freeman's due for his first big game of the year, and I think he's going to fall somewhere between those two numbers.
All right, sounds fair. I don't like Devonta Freeman. He's kind of let me down this year, but let's look at your sits. Michael, what do you have for us?
Okay, I'm going to say Latavius Murray, okay? Because I don't think that he's going to be this savior to Teddy Bridgewater. I've just seen a lot of chatter on Reddit and Twitter, just everyone saying, okay, so he's going to start handing the ball off, making it easy. I just don't think he's going to get carries. I feel like this sets up the Saints to possibly be down more, especially how many more goal line opportunities will he actually receive? I think they need to feed Kamara. Also, Seattle can stop the run fairly effectively, so you're keeping Latavius Murray on your bench for sure.
Bold pick. All right, Ryan.
You jerk.
No, I'm sorry, Michael. I'm kidding. I think putting down that you would sit the second running back on a team who lost their Hall of Fame quarterback is a bold choice. Ryan, who do you have for QB sit?
This is the guy that just you know what? I'm not doing it for this reason. Just hangs us.
I'd rather make fun of you.
Hangs us out to dry. I'd rather you make fun of me. That's good because I want to be right too. And there are a lot of people starting Latavius Murray in deep leagues, so don't do it.
They are. Don't do it. Listen to Michael.
Well, I actually have a very bold pick here as well. I'm sitting Kenyon Drake this week, and
really?
actually,
Why?
I'm sitting Kenyon Drake indefinitely. He's currently the number 41 running back in PPR, and Miami's woes are not ending this week against the Dallas Cowboys. And before the season began, I was pretty high on Drake. I thought he, was set up for, more of a breakout year. He was the number 14 PPR running back in 2018, and I thought that him being the only viable fantasy option on that Dolphins team would, lend to some value, but it turns out that it doesn't. And sit Kenyon Drake and just don't
all
put
the
him,
Dolphins.
All the Dolphins.
Don't even put him in your lineup until that offense starts to show signs of life.
Or he gets traded, because there's been some jabber about that too.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
That would be nice. Especially because, I went 0 running back and I drafted Kenyon Drake and Lamar Miller.
Ooh.
And I'm still winning that league,
Okay.
but that's only because I also commissioned that league, and it's a poor commissioner who can't win a league. Anyway, wide receiver starts. Ryan, who are you starting this week?
I'm starting Chris Godwin this week. against the Giants. While Mike Evans has been off his game through 2 weeks, Godwin's been off to a hot start. He scored a touchdown in each of the first 2 games, and he's actually on pace for over 1,300 receiving yards. He's currently the number 14 receiver in fantasy. And again, he has a very favorable matchup against the hapless Giants.
Michael?
DeAndre Hopkins, have you ever heard of him? Is he any good? Should you start him? I'm kidding, okay? Can you guys tell me who the wide receiver 66 is? Do you have any guesses?
In what? Total yards? Total points?
Yeah, just overall. I usually kind of look half points. But like, again, just think about who would be the wide receiver 66. That's probably a big name.
66. See, I memorized up to 65, so I'm trying to think who was next.
All right, I'll give you one hint. He's on the same team as Chris Godwin.
Mike Evans?
It is Mike Evans. And I'm going to say to go ahead and start Mike Evans just because of all the aforementioned reasons that Ryan said. You're beating up on the Giants. I'm starting Jameis Winston. Let's just keep it rolling with Mike Evans. Keep him in your lineup. Have faith.
All right, let's look at the sits. Ryan, who are you sitting?
I'm sad about this, but I'm sitting Calvin Ridley this week. And because I'm sitting Ridley here, he will probably go off for 100-plus yards and 2 touchdowns. But this week's matchup against the Colts isn't looking great. Indy has easily locked down number 2 receivers through the first 2 weeks, holding Mike Williams to 29 yards week 1 and A.J. Brown to 25 in week 2. And actually, the Colts defense didn't allow a single Titans receiver to go over 40 yards. So I'm sorry, Calvin. It's just for this week, though. I'm still a huge fan. Roll Tide.
Michael?
How about Tyreek Hill and A.J. Green? Does that sound good for you?
I'm surprised you didn't go there.
Okay, I'm actually sitting Josh Gordon because I kind of feel like he's the odd man out of that Patriots team. I think that since Antonio Brown joined, with the Jets quarterback Rose, I would actually rather invest in Patriots running back futures instead of Gordon. Like I said, I just kind of think he's the odd man out, and I just can't see him performing. I mean, it could happen, but there are other players that they can scheme for here.
Yeah, Belichick's going to hang 50 on the Jets.
We'll see. Like I said, I was talking to a friend, and I was just like, you know what, you want pieces of the Patriots, but with a player like Antonio Brown, I've got a feeling that Brown is not going to have sideline issues and is not going to be going off on the Patriots sideline. He needs to be that perfect gentleman, or he's going to be set straight pretty soon. But by the same token, the Patriots will feed him to prevent that type of outburst. And it's just almost like it's in Antonio Brown's contract, It's like, listen, I will be a good player for you, and if you give me the ball, I will not give you these crazy antics. And they want to keep it that way, so they will keep feeding him. I know that sounds crazy,
right.
But it's the way.
Yeah, I know. I hear you. All right, tight end starts. Michael.
Okay, so this one might be a little suspect because I could literally pick any tight end I want, but I'm still going to go with Greg Olsen despite the Cam injury news. Arizona gave up performances of 6 catches for 131 yards and 1 touchdown. That was T.J. Hawkinson, and then 8 catches for 112 yards to Mark Andrews in the last 2 games. I think obviously those numbers are inflated, but again, even if Cam doesn't play and you get a backup quarterback in there, Will Grier, I think it's Kyle Allen. I think that Greg Olsen is just going to make sure that he talks to him in the huddle and just says, look for me. We can beat this team. Stick to the game plan. We can kill them with the tight end. So I'm sticking with Greg Olsen.
Yeah, it's an awesome pick. Arizona definitely seems to be the Denver of the past few years, where you want to start all your tight ends against Arizona, just like you would start all your tight ends against Denver. And you're right, Will Grier is not slated to start. It is Kyle Allen.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Oh, dear God. Ryan, who are you going with here?
All right, so just a quick friendly reminder that if you have Mark Andrews, to put him in your lineups against Kansas City this weekend. But since that's an obvious call, I'm going with Jared Cook here.
Nice.
Despite only making 2 receptions for 25 yards last week, he did receive 7 targets. So I think the volume will be there, even with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback against the Seattle team that has been susceptible to tight ends so far, as the Seahawks have given up 18.3 points to Cincinnati's tight ends and 22.8 points to Pittsburgh's tight ends.
Yeah, Jared Cook seemed to have a down game. I think he sort of lost a little bit of vigor when Breeze went out, because he seemed to miss a couple easy passes in watching that game. And I don't think he'll do that 2 weeks in a row. I like that call. Tight end sits.
This could actually be like this segment of be like, hey, here are 8 tight ends you need to start and everybody else that you can sit. I think, again, we know kind of who the 8 tight ends that are starting. You know, you're talking your Kittle, your Ertz, Ingram, Kelsey, Olsen, maybe Delaney Walker, Darren Waller. So, again, I'm putting my hand in a magic fishbowl and pulling out the name. Oh, look, I got Noah Fant. Sit him. Congratulations. But Green Bay is amazing against the tight end. Only 2 catches for 14 yards in 2 games. So, you're not starting any Denver tight ends, especially Noah Fant.
Yeah, he's been pretty disappointing so far this season. Ryan, go ahead, say it, but you're just going to make me hate you to end the show.
Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, JJ, but
hate.
I'm sitting Jack Doyle against the Atlanta Falcons. Since his last stint as the starter in Indy, it appears Jacoby Brissett has discovered T.Y. Hilton. And this, of course, has come at the expense of Jack Doyle, who was Brissett's safety blanket from the 2017 campaign. Through 2 games, the Colts' 2 starting tight ends have a grand total of 12 targets. They have made 7 receptions, 74 yards, and 1 touchdown. So I'm sitting Doyle here because I sat Eric Ebron last week, and he went ahead and scored that lone tight end touchdown.
All right.
Are you mad?
I can't be mad. I can't be mad. All I see is his little picture on Google Hangout bouncing on his yoga ball.
That's what we're looking at.
Yeah, I know.
All right, guys, let's wrap this up. We're shooting for a better percentage this week. We'll join you next week, and we'll talk about Week 3, and hopefully there's not a ton of injuries like there were this time. Again, you can find us on Twitter at Rider Dynasty or at our website, riderdynasty.com. Have a great night.
Catch you in the next one.
Boat drinks.
Thank you for listening to the Ride or Dynasty podcast. If you have enjoyed the pod, please subscribe and leave us a rating and review on iTunes. Follow the guys on Twitter at Ride or Dynasty. You can follow JJ at JJ Wenner. Ryan is at BixPixFFB. And Michael is at Michael S. Kloss. Check out our website, rideordynasty.com. And remember, we have your back.
Your reputation far exceeds your skills, Mammy Rammer.